All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. This is actually a pretty good turnout. And I would expect no less given the guest and the topic today. So I'll let her do most of her own introduction. But Linda Kovar, some of you know her as the former Section 10 referee administrator. Some of you know her as AYSO's National Referee Program Administrator. Um, some of you know her as that lady with the new spring in her step. But Linda, I'm very appreciative that you are here teaching us on this tonight. Not only because, in large part, you helped bring this material to AYSO, but also because you bring a wealth of knowledge to us. So, Linda, take it away.
Thank you, Lewis. So as Lewis said, I am now the National Referee Program Administrator, and part of my role is also being the liaison of AYSO to U.S. Soccer. And as part of that, they had put together a working group to address referee abuse just across all of U.S. Soccer and the ecosystem. So as a result of about a year of meeting, we came out with a policy, U.S. Soccer Policy 531-9. It was launched March 1st across all of U.S. Soccer, and AYSO's Board of Directors actually adopted it on March 22nd. So it is now part of how we will be doing business. So with that, I will go into kind of the why and what this is all about. Oh, maybe I will. Okay, so U.S. Soccer identified this need for change that we have about 90% of referees that report abuse has increased over the last 5 years. And 60% of our referees are choosing not to recertify due to the harassment and threats. With this decline of referees and things that are happening, what every soccer program under U.S. Soccer recognizes is that if we don't find a way to retain our referees, we won't have games because we can't have games without the referees. And so they put their foot down, said it's time that we do something about what's been happening. So as part of that, they've updated their referee abuse prevention policy. Part of that is stronger sanctions for physical and non-physical referee abuse. So things that are verbal or things that when they make contact. Clearer definitions. So we spent a lot of time trying to define what was abuse and what was assault and what was just like gross misdemeanors, because we wanted to put in categories and then make the punishment fit the crime, if you will, for what type of abuse had actually occurred. The suspensions can be a number of games or it can be time-based based on the severity and the circumstance. So the disciplinary boards that would be looking at this would come up with what makes sense for their given time frame of where they are in the season, or whether it should be games or it should be in the calendar time frame. And then there's a penalty multiplier. So as I said, without our referees staying, especially in our youth, which is our future, if you drive away the youth, you don't have a feeding path right to our referees. And so they've actually put in a 3 times multiplier. So an infraction or some sort of offense that occurs against an adult, which might have been a 2-game suspension, jumps to a 6-game suspension if it's against a minor. It's encouraging everyone to go ahead and report abuse. It doesn't have to be the misconduct report from the referee. If somebody sees it happening, they can send in a message to the board, and it needs to be addressed. So we're working on the methods for having all that happen. And finally, as I said, March 2025, so it was actually March 1st, is when the policy went into effect for most of U.S. soccer and the ecosystem under it. So USYS, US Club, AYSO, as I said, adopted it on March 22nd. Any questions on kind of the why we put the policy together? Okay.
Real quick, I mean, AYSO adopted it with no modifications at all. Is
Correct.
that okay?
Correct. And I'll show you where that's come into the AYSO. So here's the video.
Soccer is a beautiful game, full of passion that can bring out the best in us. But when passion crosses the line, it harms the game's integrity and the safety of those who work in service to soccer. Referees are essential to the game, yet they often face situations that threaten their well-being. In our commitment to protect and empower our officials, U.S. Soccer has strengthened its referee abuse prevention policy. The revised policy encourages referees, players, coaches, and spectators to report abuse. Referee abuse is not always physical. Aggressive language and behavior are also forms of abuse. Comments or gestures intended to insult, belittle, or undermine a referee are unacceptable. This behavior results in a minimum 2-game suspension. Abusive language, harassment, intimidation, or threats towards a referee will result in a minimum 4-game suspension. Physical threats or derogatory language, in person or online, result in a minimum 6-game suspension. Discriminatory actions targeting a referee's race, ethnicity, gender, orientation, or other aspects of their identity result in a minimum 10-game suspension. Far too often, referees also endure physical abuse. Outside of a friendly handshake, there is never any reason to touch the referee. Even minor deliberate physical contact, if unwanted, will result in a minimum 3-game suspension. Intentional physical confrontation, like shoving or throwing objects, results in a minimum 10-game suspension. Violent acts, such as physical assault on referees, threaten the safety of everyone involved. These acts can result in a lifetime ban and legal action. Together, we have the power to shape the future of soccer and create a culture of respect where players, coaches, spectators, and referees can enjoy the beautiful game the way it was intended. Be a force for good. Respect the call.
Okay, so that video is out there on the US Soccer site. Okay, it's going to try and take me through it again.
Soccer is a
Hang
beautiful
on.
game, full of passion.
Okay, come on. I'm in an infinite spin now. What happened?
I think if you go down to your bottom left and you click on that right arrow, that will get you out of that loop. Huh.
Nothing wants to get me out of the loop. I'm going to escape here. Let me get out of it and see if I can get back to it with. Now I can't even find it. Yeah, it's still in its spin here on me.
Yeah, so I was looking at the list of some of the physical offenses, and it's sad to think that it's been necessary to put some of those in there.
Yeah, so in the question about AYSO adopting it without modification, there is a slight modification. The referee abuse prevention or the policy was put in place for offenses by players or coaches against the referees. AYSO has expanded that to spectators as well. So if they commit an offense against the referees, they would also be subject to those same penalties. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Last month at our area board meeting, I presented this to our board, and all of the RCs had a question on how due process would apply to spectators, since due process only applies to players and registered volunteers. How would any sort of appeal be processed?
So that was something that actually did come up in the joint council meeting that we just had. And they are saying that even though they are not registered volunteers, if you're going to sanction them for, whatever period of time, they are entitled to due process. They may have to change some language in the reference book, but there was that discussion, them saying that we would have to offer that to them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm at a loss here.
Linda, I
Yes.
will share it from my computer
Okay, go past the video.
and I will give you control so you don't even have to puppet it through me once I find you.
That's okay. You can keep control.
Okay.
Okay, so this policy covers the referees before, during, or after the match. So basically, when you arrive at the facility until you leave, where we say it may also apply later if it was related to the match. Let's say somebody sees you at the grocery store afterwards and wants to now come and cuss you out about the game that happened. You are covered in that instance as well. You must be registered, and an assault is defined as any deliberate physical action. So if there's physical contact, it falls under the assault. Any abuse is the extreme, deliberate, or non-contact behavior that causes a referee or protected party. And so when we say protected party, if they come after your spouse or your children or something because you're a horrible person, it also covers your property. And so, unfortunately, in the club scene, they have people that decide they're going to go pour their can of Coke in the referee's bag. So that would be covered. Any questions on the coverage level? All right, we can go to the next slide, Louis.
All right.
So it has been standardized across all the U.S. soccer member organizations, and by that, everyone that falls under the U.S. soccer ecosystem. So USYS, US Club, AYSO, the USL, the national teams, all of that is covered for here. And we are working on what we call phase 3, which is the how do we share any sanctions that are authorized against an offender, such that that offender is not able to move anywhere within the U.S. soccer organization. Right now, everyone is to do as they have been with administering the sanctions. What we have done within AYSO, Doug Ryan, our national president, sent out a message to all of the section directors telling them that if they have an instance that occurs, that they are to send all of that information to me, and then I will share it with the USSF side of the house, with whichever state the person happens to be associated with. And unfortunately, we've already had 2 instances in AYSO that have occurred this month. So one in Florida and one in Tennessee. As I said, we adopted it on March 22nd, and it does apply to spectators as well. Let me go to the next slide, Louis. Okay, within the AYSO reference book, this is just one of the areas under the national rules and regulations where we talk about the coaches and their responsibility. In there, we say any abuse or assault and or gross misconduct directed at any match official which will be disciplined in accordance with U.S. Soccer Policy 531-9, misconduct toward game officials in amateur matches, which the policy was effective March of 2025. So these words are spread throughout the reference book. It's under extra, it's under United, it's over in the coach area. We've added a bullet into the kids zone pledge. So it's scattered throughout the reference book as of March 22nd. So which by the way, the reference book is now on the wiki. Okay. you go to the next slide. As we said, penalties can range from a number of years to a lifetime ban, depending on the severity. If it's conducted against a minor, it's a 3 times penalty, which all this is saying to us as referees is it's really important about your misconduct report having detailed information. All of you in Section 10, if you've been to any of the Section 10 tournaments, you know that I harp on you about, or I have harped on you about make sure that there's enough detail there that someone reading it didn't have to be there, but they understood exactly what happened. You know, even if, yes, it's offensive to write some of the swear words, we need exactly what was said. Don't just say it was offensive. We need
That's kind of
specific
like
wording.
we've referenced in the past, right? When a you talk to the pro referees when they write their misconduct reports, the first person that's going to look at it is the lawyer for the player. And so, okay, maybe they need a different focus in writing theirs, but now we know this is another focus we need to keep in mind as we write our misconduct report.
Yeah.
I see John
John,
has his, yeah.
Yeah, quick question. So, in a recent tournament, it should also be documented on the game card as well. And then also, I mean, from the game card, the misconduct report comes about, right?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we definitely need the misconduct report because the game cards don't necessarily go to the offender's region or area or section, but the misconduct report would. You have another question, Theo or Mariano?
Hi, Linda.
Hi.
One question I have is that is there any leniencies right now to the offenders as RAP is rolling out? I can assume that a lot of people just don't know about it.
Well, whether or not they know about it, they shouldn't be abusing the referees. But with regards to leniency, that's the whole reason for the due process and the dispute resolution. As I was telling Lewis, one of the instances that happened, the coach was actually just misbehaving, was accusing the referee of being biased and so forth, and eventually got himself dismissed. Well, when he got himself dismissed, there was no assistant coach. And so the game got terminated. What the opposing team saw then was the parents from the team's coach that got dismissed, the parents all surrounded the referee. So about 20 emails came in about parents from this team attacking the referee. When we sorted through it turns out that the referee says no, they just didn't understand why they couldn't keep playing. And so once he explained it to them, they dispersed, but they weren't happy, but they understood. But there was nothing where they were attacking him, but it was perceived that that was what was there, which is why it's really important for all of the whole due process to occur so that you can sort through what was actually occurring and what disciplinary action should be taken.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Robert, you're on mute.
Yes, in further slides, are you going to talk a little bit about what constitutes mistreatment and how that's different from abuse and what, if any, penalty or, there would be for mistreatment?
Yes, we do have the slide that's there. I'm not going to go into the whole details of what's in 531-9, but if you go to the reference book and you click on that link, you will actually get the policy and you'll see the full definitions. Okay, Keith?
Thanks, Linda. So to me, this is excellent. It's long overdue and really great that you're involved in this and getting this over the line. My question is a little bit along the lines of what Mariano said, but more like, how do we
Okay, I lost you.
Am I gone?
No, now you're back. How do
Okay,
we?
sorry. Sorry. So my question is, how do we get this communicated to the non-referee community? Because to me, that's the real challenge here. To get this out to folks so they know, hey, we're serious. These are the penalties. They're severe, and this we're having a new focus, because for our region at least, that's the big challenge is actually getting the word out to spectators and coaches that, hey, we expect you to act a certain way,
Right.
and this is and so yeah. Do we have
Yes, we
any
do.
kind of, yeah? All right, cool.
Okay. So, in fact, Monday, I just met with the other council leads. So it was the coach council, referee council, management council, safety council, and the AYSO office. So we all got together to talk about what communication products we need to develop and get out to the masses for the coming season. Some of it's already rolled out. So for instance, if you've set up your registration site for this coming season, they have put an electronic, I forgot what it stands for, ELA. They put a form out there that the parents have to actually read and agree to, which is talking about that abuse of the referees will not be tolerated and there are severe sanctions. Um, so they went ahead and put that out there because people have started registration. So as people are getting their site set up, that's being put out there. The coaching side is putting things into the coach code of conduct that's going to go out to all the coaches. They are creating pamphlets that are going to go to the parents that they can hand out to them. We are going to be putting things into the referee training about handling dissent much earlier, trying to avoid abuse. Um, so those are some of the things that are going to be coming out. We are going to meet again at the NAGM with hopefully, most of the products will be done and completed. Oh, one thing that I left out that the referee side is doing, we are having Sportspin produce green badges for the 8U regional and intermediate referees for the youth to wear the green badges. So there isn't a question of, well, gee, I didn't know they were a youth. Well, they're going to be identified if you choose to go purchase those badges. Be the same as our regular badges, but we're just doing it for them. We're not doing it for the advanced just because we feel like those that have made that rank, if they're still a youth, they're probably mature enough to handle themselves.
And I wanted to address Keith. At the last area board meeting, we discussed this, and most of our coach administrators were present. They were invited, and they became aware of it. And there was a lot of discussion between the regional commissioners. And one topic that seemed to be a good idea is parent meetings. A pretty good number of the regions in Area W have parent meetings. I know in Fillmore, we've instituted that 2 years ago, and we will be sharing this information with the parents at the parent meetings. So a lot of the regions are talking about how to get the information out to everyone.
Wonder how my region responded to that, because we've been trying to push that for years and it's always been heels dug in, and I essentially have demanded it for this year. So I think it's absolutely imperative that we have parent meetings.
Keith,
But
just so
it's
you know, your coach administrator, Kate, was very much advocating for that as well.
good.
It's good.
Maybe we can win the day.
Okay, so a lot of communication materials will be coming your way and be available to you to use. So stay tuned. Okay, next slide.
Fantastic.
Can you say next slide?
Yes, please. Okay, so here is the penalties matrix that's there. So you can see like non-physical, if it's insulting, belittling, insinuating, taunting behavior, undermining the referee's authority. That would be the minimum 2 games, which was the case of um, one of the offenses that came in. The referee came onto the field, finger pointing, shouting at the youth referee. Um, Basically was going to get a 2 game suspension, but because it was a minor, is serving a 6 game suspension. So, and all of this includes, so like the cyberbullying, if it comes then in an email or it comes in a text message or they post it on social media of, you know, Linda's the worst referee ever. It's still, those count.
So, Linda, looking at the first line of non-physical,
Mm-hmm.
that seems like something that often we take in stride. We are taunted, um, our authorities undermined, we're belittled, insulted. So,
So this is, I would look at this as where if you're dealing with dissent, the initial dissent, right, where it's
mhm.
like, ref, are you blind? And you're trying to get them to come down from there. When you're talking about this first line, it's probably been a send off. You've sent them off because of that continued behavior. And so now with that send off, we're saying, okay, you're getting a 2 game suspension.
Okay.
Okay. So where we are going to focus within AYSO is we want our referees dealing with the dissent much earlier. Don't let it get to this point where you have to send them off, if at all possible. We want to try and remind them, coach, you're acting irresponsibly. Please stop, because it's not going to turn out well.
I think that's excellent because I think we're hesitant to act early. And I think that's a big thing. And I think you mentioned it earlier that we have to teach our newer refs. We have to actually tell them these things are going to happen and here's how you can deal with it. And you have the tools
Right.
and you need to deal with it early before it becomes a huge problem.
That's what we would like to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Linda, I have a question.
Yes, Cindy.
Do you anticipate when you get the communication in place that it would be able to handle pretty quickly? I'm going to give you an example. This past fall, we had a coach who I gave a red card to, and I would say his behavior was right in there between the orange and the red on the non-physical.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also coaching his son on a club team. And the next day on Sunday, he did the same thing to the referee there, and he got a red card there. Would there be the communication fast enough to have suspended him from his club game the next day?
We are hoping to be able to get to a system that allows us to do that. That's all part of that safe soccer, that we would all be registered under the same database, so that now when you got the red card against this coach and it would be tagged onto him, that same information is the information that his club would have as well. Right now, it's all a manual process of you having to then notify me and then for me to let like Juan Guzman know that, hey, you've got a coach that's going to show up there that is serving a 6 game or 4 game suspension, and that includes there as well.
Okay.
So
And just so you know,
right
he
now,
was having a
no.
bad weekend.
Yeah.
But 3 weeks later, he had calmed himself down. He was extremely remorseful and he came and apologized for his behavior.
Okay. Well, I think once they find out how severe it's going to be and it's going to stop them from going somewhere else as well, They might think twice. Dave, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think for his own good and for the good of everybody around it, would have been good if he could have gotten stopped after one red card on the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Linda. My kind of question is that a coach is being very cooperative, but a parent is out of line, completely out of line. How do we deal with that? And does the coach have to suffer the same consequences, even if they're like asking for
No,
assistance from us?
No. You,
no.
you definitely do not want to caution or send off the coach because of a spectator. The best way to handle it is you pick up the ball, you blow the whistle, and you say, we cannot continue this match until your spectator is left.
Yeah, that's
So,
actually explicit in USSF guidance before this.
so how do we, if we don't know who the spectator belongs to, how do we have them serve a suspension or a non-spectator, in that role?
Somebody probably knows them. I mean, it's rare, but it does happen that you get somebody, wanders over to the game and is just going to be a jerk there. But if somebody knows who it is, then, we'll catch that later. We'll talk to, the coaches afterwards. Have any idea who that was? Otherwise, all you can do is just write it up that you had to suspend the match to get a spectator removed.
And
But
one thing that can be helpful in that moment, right? We don't know that person's name, or they're refusing to give their name, and the coach, I don't know, it's someone's aunt or something like that. Um, you don't have your phone on you, but you can ask the coach, hey, can you snap a photo of that? And we can afterwards, we're going to get the person out of here. And after the game, I can get that photo and we could pass it around. Someone's going to get it. That's a tactic that's available to you. Don't chase them down and make it worse by insisting they give
No.
you their name, you ask for their
I mean,
ID or anything like that.
the most important thing is to get them off the touch line.
Yep.
And then the penalty can come later. But I think you got to get them out of there.
John?
So, yeah, I just want to clarify because and as long as I'm doing it right, and I don't do it right all the time, initially, if a coach can't control a sideline, giving that coach a caution is kind of what I've been told.
That's
Now, oh, go ahead, Keith.
Well, I was just going to say, I think we had that feeling. We used to say, well, they're responsible for that touch line. That's their touch line. Yeah, but I, a couple of years ago, actually read USSF guidance on that, and it's totally contrary to what USSF says to do. You can't discipline the coach for their touch line behavior. You need to deal with the touch line. And it isn't the coach, especially say in AYSO, you have a lot of coaches who don't actually even may have problems with their touch line, and they have an inability to control it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of my question because most of us have dealt with a situation where a coach almost
Yeah.
thanks the referee for taking
Right.
care of a parent
Yeah.
situation. But there's also times that, like I said, when you don't know, in Bakersfield, I ended up kicking out a parent, but I do wish that I would have carded the coach as well because of all the behavior. I thought it ramped up. And I look at myself as I should have done something more in general for that. But anyway, that's what I wanted to kind of clarify.
So what I would look at it, John, if the coach is trying to be cooperative with you, then don't make an enemy of them and caution the coach, right? If they're trying, or they may say, I haven't been able to handle them all season long. It's like, okay, coach, well, the next outburst, then I'm just going to speak to you towards your touch line, saying that the spectator has to leave, or the game will not continue. So, it's just an agreement that you have with the coach to work that way. And, the coach may say, yes, please. that's fine.
And I was given, I think, some good advice on this because it happened to me a few years ago, Linda, and I love it. It's hey, whether it's a coach who's been who refuses to leave, or a spectator, you say, hey, I'm going to pick. You pick up the ball. You say, hey, we're going to suspend this game until that spectator leaves or until you leave, coach. I'm going to go in the middle of the field. I tell our refs, hey, go in the middle of the field, stand there for 2 minutes. If it takes 2 minutes, 2 minutes is an eternity in the middle of a game, and wait for them to calm down and realize that it's serious and they need to go. Spectators will probably start talking to them,
Yep.
and then go back and say, what have you decided? It gives them a second without you in their face, without you continuing to, you've explained it. You've told them the consequences. Make your decision. I'll let you think about it. And I think I think that's a really good method.
And sometimes, John, it's just saying, you might not know who, but it's like someone over here said something, and until somebody leaves from there, we're not continuing. And once you send somebody off, the others tend to fall in line. Sacrificial lamb. Theo, did you
South
have a
American
question?
dictator.
I know you put your hand back down, but
Yeah, I think we had a question, but I think we sort of thought through it and answered. But as we think about the spectator and them creating an offense here, we thought about like the due process. So they will also go through the due process through AOASO in order to get these misconduct games, these games penalties.
yes, and especially if we're going to do a lifetime ban. Well, and the reason, coming back to Cindy's question about the spectators having due process, the spectators are associated with the player. And typically, if we sanction the parent, then the player gets punished, which is why they said we really need to do the due process for the spectators.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready for the next slide. All right, so for us, don't change the way you officiate the game in response to the policy. Continue managing the behavior from the coaches and players and spectators. Be proactive. So maybe that's, the biggest key here is deal with dissent early. If you need support or guidance on how to do the effective behavior management, please reach out to your ref administrator or your area ref administrator. And let's use our tools. So I think the next one I have is the actual, yes. So if you click through the first three there, the look, talk, or warn. We've all heard some of those, initial grumblings, right? Oh, come on, ref. What's that? Call it both ways. Maybe those just need that stern look or the hand gesture of that's enough. If you click here 2 more times, Lewis, I like to think of it as that's initially you see a match. You have a flame there. We can put it out with a glass of water. Deal with it early, and let's see if we can calm it down. We get up to the next levels where I have to do my whistle or a caution. You're now talking about we've got now a bigger fire, right? I now have to bring in the bucket of water. We're stopping things. We're having to go over, point out this is unacceptable. You're basically interrupting the match. Worse yet, we go to the next 3 levels of the send off, suspend, where we're waiting for them to go, or they just aren't leaving and we terminate. You now have a full blown fire and we have to call in additional help. Please, 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 as much as we can, we want to try and deal with it early. So don't let it get to that. Let's try not to get it to the campfire. But it gets beyond that. Some coaches just can't help themselves, or spectators can't help themselves. All right.
I love the glass of water analogy. That's good. Can we throw the glass of water on the coach or the
You can.
spectator?
But then you probably would serve a suspension.
Wait, yes, that's right. That's right. Okay, all right.
All right. And then we did talk, so there are quite a bit of communications under development. The marketing office has done this trifold pamphlet that they're looking to provide to folks to be able to give out to parents. They're talking about new signage for the kid zone that would go out. People will be able to put out onto their fields. They're talking about it being a stop sign, a shape, and in red instead of the yellow, which is just a warning. Instead, we're telling them stop. Don't do these things. So more to come. I will certainly get information out to like Cindy, the other ARAs, with what is determined to be coming out as far as communications, which we will know at the end of May. And she can then pass that on to all of you.
Yeah,
So,
and so Keith and you probably didn't read my report last month, but I sent out to all the regional referee administrators a presentation that I gave at the board meeting, and it has all kinds of information in it. So if you look at that email I sent you when we had our board meeting,
Good.
you can find a link to some good information.
That was presented at our board meeting, your information.
Oh yeah, Megan
So
was
we
at
saw
the
it.
board. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
okay. So that is all I have. Any other questions?
I want to give a moment to see if anyone else has something before I jump in.
This is good stuff.
I can't figure out how to raise my hand, so I'm just going to jump in here.
Okay.
I know that referee abuse is a big topic in, soccer, but I guess from my perspective as a fairly new referee, I've had pretty good experience, at least within my region and AYSO. So I guess my question is, how would you characterize, I guess, the level of referee abuse within AYSO, or more specifically within the area or section? I mean, right? So
I think within AYSO, it's pretty minimal. In fact, when we had the discussion about adopting this policy within AYSO, there was some vocal board members who said, we don't need this. It never happens in AYSO. Well, I'd like to think it never happens, but we do have a few rare instances where it occurs. You're always going to have a bad apple here or there. And, whether or not this will change their behavior going forward, we hope so. But what we're really trying to tell our referees is if it happens, we are going to take action and we don't want you to quit. We're trying to make you feel that you're supported, you are needed, and you're appreciated. And so administration is finally getting behind it to say, we're not going to tolerate it. But as I said, I don't see that many instances happening in AYSO. And unfortunately, in the last month, we had 2 across the nation that occurred within AYSO. In that same time frame, you had over a dozen that occurred in club.
But of course, oh, wait.
So,
And if you look around the room right now, there are multiple people who have refereed outside of AYSO and have come back to only refereeing in AYSO in large part because of this specific issue.
And I'm going to say that I think it's rare right now because we're in the season. We're not in our, and I'm going to say that I think that's the message we give to a lot of new that, oh yeah, it doesn't happen much, or this is, but it's not true. It happens a lot. I think it's really underreported. I think that we a lot of behavior go by. We lose referees because it isn't reported and it isn't managed. So I'm gonna take a different tack there and say no, it's far more prevalent and it needs to be shut down. It makes the game unpleasant. It makes it bad for the kids, bad for the volunteers, and I think this is a really great.
Yeah,
And Linda,
Randy. Oh,
uh,
sorry.
uh, that brings me back to a question on Linda. You quoted earlier that in the last 5 years, the reporting of abuse has gone up 90%. What's behind that? Is it the occurrence of abuse, or is it the means to report?
I think it's more that it's asking people, it's not in the reporting necessarily. It's in asking people why they aren't coming back. And them saying that, well, that I got chased off of this field or I got yelled at about this and, I'm just tired of it. So it is an underreporting, as Keith said, is a problem. But that 90% is really just in interviewing people of what made you go away. Robert, you had a.
Yeah, this is just a very brief tangent, but it's kind of related. Last year, I was doing a bunch of tournaments down south to get my game count up and get experience. And there was this one tournament. In their tournament, they had this thing where um, teams got a point deducted if their coaches didn't act well, and they got another point deducted if their spectators didn't act well. And so, I mean, they could get 10 points for the game, but have -2 or -1, and it might make a difference in the once they got to uh, the second day of games. And it was amazing because a month before that, I was refereeing some of these teams, and they weren't acting very well. But that weekend, no one misbehaved. It was amazing. It was incredible. I really was. I was like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only place I've ever seen that employed. Thanks for letting me share.
Well, and we will be testing this at national games. So they will be, putting out communications to the coaches ahead of time, letting them know that, yeah, we're taking this seriously. There will be no abuse of the referees to happen at national games. Or they spent a lot of money to come and they're going to go home.
Hmm. John, did you have something? I cut you off earlier.
No, I backed down. I mean, I was gonna just even in Moore Park, we had an incident with a youth referee where spectators disagreed with calls and there was crying, and I happened to be on the field next the field over, and I stopped the game, and I asked both coaches if I could stop in the substitution halfway through the second half and walked over and addressed. So these things, they happen. You know, this was out before, but even Moore Park, we ended up. It was a U10 girls team. We made them stay probably about 20 yards from the field. There were repercussions, but not as stringent. So this would probably give us more backing to control it. So yeah, there's ways or there's things that pop up even in our own region that can be addressed better. And the key thing is the learning curve to the spectators and the coaches. This is what's going to happen. This is the repercussions. And I mean, test it because that's what's going to happen. So yeah.
I can tell you, I went to a USL match a couple weeks ago, and some of the spectators started booing the referee and shouting some obscenities. They came over the loudspeaker right away and said that there will be no abuse of the referees, and anyone caught by security shouting obscenities at the referee will be escorted from the facility and not welcome back. Tone changed. So, they might have booed, but there was no more shouting coming out. So, USL falls under US Soccer. I was like, hey, that was kind of cool. Yeah, and I wish this was in place several years ago. We actually had a referee that got hit by the ball in the face by a goalkeeper, came out after the game, was upset at the ref, threw the ball, hit him right in the face, knocked him out. We did go file a police report, but the kid's attitude was, it was his last game. What are you going to do? I'm going off to college. Guess what? We can carry your suspension forward.
Yeah. And that's something we see, like, oh, it's my last game. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's my last game of the tournament. Well, this will follow them next tournament wherever they
We
go.
saw that. We saw that in last year's national games
Yeah.
in the boys' final.
And yeah, and that dovetails right into another thing that came to mind as Linda had up the slide showing the assault factors. I'm not an expert on it by any means, but I know the law actually specifically in California protects or sanctions assault against sports officials. So if it gets to that level, the police should be called
Yes.
as well. Yeah, at that point, reach to a higher authority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it doesn't rise to that point. Hopefully, you put the
Hopefully.
water on the match.
That's right. Let's put the match out. Let's not let it burn further.
Well, I think we're very excited to see what will happen here, especially as you think about the culture of sports and the culture of professional sports and what you see on television. And as a spectator, you're booing the refs all the time, and it's a thing people do. And as people see that, they're taking that to the field at AYSO, they think it's okay. So it's
Yeah.
a big cultural shift that I think spectators are going to have to change, and coaches are going to have to change to protect these refs. So it'll be interesting to see how this all happens.
I know it can be done because if you've ever watched a rugby match, you watch the respect that players and everyone give to the official. The official blows the whistle and it's just like, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What's the favorite clip you've ever seen when the player starts talking back to the rugby referee and he goes, "This isn't soccer."
Yes. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great culture.
Yeah.
That's funny because sometimes when people commit a reckless foul, I say, this isn't rugby.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I think there's some very interesting things we get to cover this year. So the theme is rising to the occasion, and a lot of focus there is coming to the national games prepared in July. Um, Prepared in a lot of ways. So when we launched the theme for the year, a lot of the talk was about reading the game and understanding the cues on do they need more fouls, more misconduct, less misconduct, um, and really I love getting to watch the games because the curriculum gets reshaped as we or I should say takes shape as the season goes on. Um, because I've even had matches I've watched and I thought the referee did not rise to the occasion, did not deal with the touchline misbehavior when it was small, and it got big, and the referee ran out of tools to handle it. And then a big factor that I've been noticing is that it's not always apparent to the referee. The referees have 22 players to mind. The referees have a lot of running to do, a lot of mechanics to execute. And so I think one thing that's coming up that I don't really generally find in the curriculum is how to handle all that and also be keyed into the temperature rising and the need for that. So that's something for which I'm trying to find instruction, trying to find someone to teach on that. Um, it's great to see everyone's questions tonight. I know these are called focused discussions. These are very much meant to be interactive, not lectures, and I appreciate everyone being here and doing that. And I hope as it went on, you got a sense of why Linda knows this stuff so well. um, she's very much at the forefront of, and Linda, I really appreciate the access we have because I could be wrong, but I suspect with your busy retirement schedule, you are not doing this 5 nights a week for various referee groups.
Not so far, but I've been spending a lot of time on RAP this week. Probably have spent 20 hours on this topic already.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate the time you gave, and we're going straight to the source, getting the answers to our questions. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And I hope I see all of you at national games.
There we go. Yeah. All right. So I want to wrap it up there and point out we got plenty more coming, and we're going to meet up with a number of you tomorrow night for another briefer, much more brief session to get ready for the tournament for the weekend. But thanks very much for putting in yet another hour of volunteering for AYSO, shaping the game for the kids to make it better.